Somewhere in your home right now, there exists an opening the size of a brick carved into the wall near your foundation. But you've likely never noticed it because it is not one single hole. Instead, it is a collection of a dozen tiny gaps scattered along your basement's perimeter. Combined, these gaps amount to an opening roughly 36 square inches in size. Cold air streams through this unnoticed breach 24 hours a day throughout winter, forcing your furnace to work overtime, shortening its lifespan, and driving up energy bills. According to the Department of Energy, leaks in this precise location may account for as much as 25% of the total air infiltration in a typical home. That is more than the contribution from doors, more than windows, and even more than the attic hatch you assumed was the culprit. The remedy is surprisingly simple. About $10 worth of foam from any hardware store. You can seal it in a single afternoon. This area is called the rim joist. If you've ever descended into your basement to change a furnace filter, grab a tool, or check a breaker panel, you've been standing right in front of it. The rim joist is the horizontal band of wood sitting atop your concrete foundation wall, precisely where the ceiling of the basement meets its walls. It runs continuously around the house. In most unfinished basements, it is fully exposed. No drywall, no paint, nothing but wood, concrete, and the tiny seams between them. These seams are often the single largest source of air leakage in the home. Here's why this matters for your everyday life. That cold kitchen floor in February, the draft you can't pinpoint, the furnace laboring longer than necessary, the unexpectedly high gas bills, all of these trace back to this one strip of wood. It allows frigid outside air to creep directly into your basement, unseen and relentless, while your furnace struggles endlessly. The Department of Energy cites a figure of 25%, but this is a modeled approximation. What about real-world measurements? In 2007, a company called Handiome hired a certified HERAS energy rater, a third-party auditor accredited by the U.S. government, to conduct a before and after blower door test on a typical home in Kansas. This house had standard fiberglass insulation at the rim joist and conventional construction. The baseline measurement was taken, then expanding foam was applied to the rim joist area. The test was repeated. The result? Total air infiltration for the home dropped by 11.4%, with projected heating and cooling savings of 19.3%. The calculated leakage area eliminated equaled 36.8 square inches, the size of a single brick. One small section of the house made this huge impact. Building Science Corporation, a research organization that has effectively defined the modern American home building standards, has been documenting this pathway for over 3 decades. Joseph Listerick, their lead engineer, identifies the seam where wood framing meets concrete as the critical seal of the building envelope. It is among the most extensively studied points of air leakage in residential construction, yet most homeowners remain unaware of it. To understand exactly what occurs, picture this. Your house functions as a chimney, not metaphorically, but physically. Warm air inside rises when indoor temperatures exceed those outside. As it escapes through every small attic opening, recessed lights, attic hatches, bathroom fans, plumbing stacks, it creates a negative pressure inside the house. This vacuum pulls in cold air through the lowest available openings, typically the rim joist. A dozen tiny gaps are distributed around the perimeter, where the sill plate meets the concrete, where the rim joist intersects the sill plate, and where the subfloor connects with the rim joist, including every penetration for pipes, wires, and vents. The entire process is driven by the temperature difference. The greater the contrast between indoor warmth and outdoor cold, the harder the system works, pulling more air in and pushing your furnace to the limit. In January in Ohio, your house behaves like a low-grade chimney, pulling in icy air through the basement and pushing warm air out of the roof day and night. Your furnace isn't truly warming your living space, it is warming a draft. Here's the part that shocked me during research. Your rim joist probably isn't uninsulated. Look up there, and you may notice fragments of pink or yellow fiberglass tucked between floor joists. Builders have been installing it this way for 6 decades. It's the standard method. And yet, it barely affects the air leak. Fiberglass slows heat transfer but does not block airflow. Air passes freely through it. Think of it like a furnace filter. It slows airflow, catches dust, yet cannot stop air from moving. The spaces behind the fiberglass remain wide open. Moreover, because fiberglass allows warm indoor air to contact the cold wood behind it, in frigid climates, the wood absorbs moisture, stays damp, and eventually rots. Fine Home Building magazine has documented cases where builders removed fiberglass bats from 30-year-old rim joists and discovered the lumber behind darkened and beginning to decay. The insulation homeowners believed was shielding their home had, in fact, allowed air to pass, trapping moisture against the very structure it was meant to protect. This revelation stunned me. For 60 years, the standard solution has been worse than useless. Installed in tens of millions of American homes exactly as instructed, it was the wrong approach from the start. Now, let's quantify what actually solves this issue. A 12-ounce can of Great Stuff expanding foam at Home Depot costs about $4.48. A typical home requires 2 to 3 cans to seal the entire rim joist perimeter. Every seam, every gap, every penetration for pipes. That's $10 to $15 in materials to block the single largest source of infiltration in the building. Adding 2 sheets of 2-inch rigid foam board brings total costs to $60 to $80. Half an afternoon of work. Hire a professional spray foam contractor for the same job, and the price jumps to $1,300 to $3,000. Call an HVAC technician about cold floors, and the discussion often heads in a completely different direction. New furnace, attic insulation upgrade, fresh ductwork, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Meanwhile, the leak alone costs roughly $250 to $400 extra annually in heating and cooling every year, for as long as you own the house under a 30-year mortgage. That adds up to over $10,000 spent conditioning air that escapes before your thermostat even detects it. And yet, the $10 solution never enters any of these conversations. If you want to check whether your home suffers from this specific problem right now, there's a simple test taking just 30 seconds. Light an incense stick or candle on a cold, windy day. Hold it near the seam where your foundation meets the wooden framing. Watch the smoke. If it tilts sideways toward the wall, active air infiltration is present. Move the incense along the perimeter. Anywhere the smoke shifts indicates a leak. This is the homeowner version of a certified energy auditor's professional smoke pencil test during a blower door assessment. Same principle, same result, zero cost. In most basements, leaks appear within half a minute. So why isn't this common knowledge? No one buried the information. Building Science Corporation has been publishing research on rim joists since the 1990s. Energy Star promotes it. The 2012 International Residential Code made air sealing rim joists mandatory in new construction. That was 14 years ago. Yet, in all that time, no one knocked on your door to inform you. The knowledge has existed but remains invisible to most homeowners. Walk through the usual path. Cold floors are noticed. A call is made to an HVAC company. The tech earns more on a furnace than on diagnostics. Insulation contractors' minimum jobs cost $1,300 because equipment, insurance, and labor justify larger projects. Utility companies benefit when heaters run longer. The homeowner, the only person who gains from knowing about the $10 can of foam, is the only one left out. This isn't suppression. Every indicator in the system seems to point somewhere other than the single solution that truly helps. A few critical points if you plan to tackle this yourself. This is not a miracle fix. If your attic leaks, it must be sealed too. The stack effect relies on both top and bottom, and addressing only one end shifts the problem rather than eliminating it. Energy. Star recommends sealing the attic first, then the basement, because openings at the top leak far more air than those at the bottom. The rim joist is the largest leak at the lower end, but it is not the sole source of infiltration in the home. Next, and this is essential, if your home relies on a natural draft gas furnace, gas water heater, or any combustion appliance venting through a chimney, sealing leaks alters the availability of makeup air needed for proper draft. In rare instances, an airtight home with natural draft appliances can backdraft, meaning combustion gases, including carbon monoxide, may be drawn back into the living space rather than exiting the chimney. The solution is straightforward. Ensure a functioning carbon monoxide detector is on every floor. If you have older naturally vented units, have a qualified technician verify draft performance after sealing, sealed combustion and direct vent systems remain unaffected. This is a known manageable issue, not a reason to avoid the project. For DIY, a smooth bead from a straw applicator often works better than gun-applied foam on your first attempt. Always wear nitrile gloves and eye protection. The foam bonds to skin and takes roughly 2 weeks to wear off. In colder climates, closed cell foam is preferable. In milder areas, open cell foam suffices. If gaps exceed 1 inch, cut a piece of rigid foam board to fit, sealing the edges with the can. Foam alone cannot span wide openings. Here is what the process looks like. On a Saturday morning, descend into your basement. Walk to the wall and look up. You see it, the concrete foundation wall, the wooden sill plate atop it, and the rim joist encircling the perimeter, intersected by floor joists above every 16 inches. Each section between joists is a joist bay. Remove any fiberglass tucked in. It never performed as expected. Shake the can, attach the straw, and start in a corner. Apply a slow bead along the seam where the sill plate meets concrete. Continue around the perimeter, then seal where the rim joist joins the sill plate. In each joist bay, fill small gaps between the subfloor and rim joist. Any pipe or wire penetrating framing must be sealed. Appearance does not matter. This is not decoration. It is plugging leaks. 2 hours, maybe 3 for larger homes. Foam cures overnight. Now imagine February, frigid outdoors. You return to the basement for an unrelated task, perhaps seeking a screwdriver or checking the breaker panel. Something feels different. It may take a moment to recognize it. The faint, constant draft that faded from your awareness years ago has vanished. The basement is quieter. The sound of air rushing through gaps that existed since you moved in is gone. Upstairs the following morning, you step barefoot into the kitchen. The floor is not warm, the tile will always feel cool, but it no longer carries the biting chill of 20-degree air being pulled underneath. The furnace cycled once overnight instead of 6 times. Your next gas bill shows a lower number, perhaps $20, perhaps $40. Multiply that across the heating season, then over the remaining life of the house. This is what $10 of foam and a few hours on a Saturday accomplish. The largest air leak in your home is not hidden behind walls. It is not beneath the slab. You do not need to remove drywall. It is 8 inches of exposed wood resting atop the foundation, in plain view. Almost every American homeowner has walked past it countless times without realizing it. The solution sits on the bottom shelf of the insulation aisle at every hardware store nationwide, costing less than a lunch. It has been there for decades. Take action. Identify the leaks. Seal them. Save energy. Protect your home. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.